Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode number 56 of Restitching the Tapestry. We were trying to be intimidating, and we know it totally worked, right? But yes, welcome to episode number 56 of Restitching the Tapestry. It's been a little over a week since we've seen you because we have had a really busy past week. So thank you for being so patient. And conveniently, we are pretty much on time to have a conversation about Samhain, which is just around the corner. Happy Samhain, everyone. Yay.
Yay.
Um, we wanted to just take this episode and talk about like the history of Samhain and like our own experiences, like becoming knowledgeable about Samhain and practices surrounding it, so on and so forth. So, um, of course, before we get started, Ari, how have you been doing? What inspired your amazing look this evening?
I can't decide if I'm the chick from Mad Max or if I'm a bandit. But here I am. I don't have a Halloween costume for Halloween, so I thought I would try and dress up for you guys.
I fully endorse it. It's amazing.
So this is it. This is what you get. I don't know. You get makeup.
It's still way more impressive than my genericness that I have right now. Although I will say, to go with the season, I am wearing my Scarlet Witch WandaVision shirt. So
Yay.
that's Samhain-ish, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah. Scarlet was just totally Samhain-ish.
I love Wanda so much. Um, but of course, before we get started with talking about what we want to talk about tonight, I am going to go over our show's mission statement. Let me see here. Many witness different atrocities, large or small, that fray the social fabric around us, and much of the time, many may feel powerless and know not how to address such things. Due to social media, this fray has gotten worse because we're able to collectively share in this trauma as it goes viral in real time. And unfortunately, marginalized communities are often the victim of these traumas that take place. So, our goal with Restitching the Tapestry is to use our privilege in some positive way by teaching ourselves and being open to learning and perpetuating what we learn as a means to, help pass on that knowledge in some fashion. So, um, but we want to do this through, conversation, creativity, and educating. But anyway, let's see. We have Arpy here tonight, Taylor here. Taylor's like, wow, I'm actually on time. We understand when you're not because we know you have a kiddo to put to bed. Um, Leo's here. I'm glad you're feeling better, Leo. Deborah Novak is here. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. And thank you so much for the sweet comment. I really appreciate it. Yes, the past week has been very hectic for me because I did have a book release on Friday. It's been going very well. Um, I'm going to be honest. This book is the work that I mean. Don't get me wrong. I'm proud of Carbon Footprint, but I am really, really proud of Feats of Alchemy. Like it is very near and dear to my heart, and we will be talking a little bit more in the future about why that is because I've kind of become a little obsessive about certain genres right now. So, let's see. Leo says I'm ordering a refurbished classic slash original Nintendo DS, and the seller is letting me choose a combo. That is amazing. I unintentionally chose trans colors, but I love it. That's super cool.
Hey.
So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about Samhain. That is the theme of our show, so I guess we might as well get started, right? So, Ari, the big question, what is Samhain?
So Samhain is the time of year when we come together and we celebrate. Well, it's twofold. It's either Halloween or Samhain. Sometimes,
They kind of bleed together sometimes they don't, depending on.
So if you're talking about Halloween, it's going out, getting candy, and just celebrating the Halloween All Hallows Eve, which is a non-denominational holiday where you go trick-or-treating and just dress up in a costume, maybe go to a party, and that situation. But if you're a pagan, Samhain is more like a recognition of the fall and the darkening, the last before the darkening of the season. It's the time of the crone and the lessening of the veil between the living and the dead. So there's a recognition of that. And so basically, the history of Samhain goes back to the ancient Celts. They mark Samhain as the most significant of the 4 quarterly fire festivals, taking place at the mid-mark between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. During this time of year, hearth fires and family homes were left to burn while the harvest was gathered. After the harvest work complete, celebrants would join druid priests to light a community fire using a wheel that would cause friction and spark flames. The wheel was considered a representative of the sun and used along with prayers. Cattle were sacrificed, and participants took a flame to the communal bonfire back to their home and would relit the hearth. So that's kind of a part of the history. There's a lot more to it with the Celts. Do you want to talk about some more about the Celtic history?
Yeah, sure. First, Leo asks, is it pagan or is it Wiccan? And like I would say paganism originated first, but there are many different religions and spiritualities that have like adapted and adopted different celebrations and yearly holidays that pagans originally came up with back in the day. Now, like Samhain was there's an interesting aspect to Samhain where it's a celebration, but also a grieving of sorts, right? Where there is the celebration of the end of the harvest, but also the grieving of what was lost and the grieving of what's to come because of the darker season that approaches, right? It's meant to draw awareness to that part of the yearly cycle. And I want to use this opportunity to talk a little bit about my history discovering what Samhain is. And Ari, you'll be able to chime in on this as well, because I think both of us around similar times at least actively participated in celebrating it, back in the day. So when I started going to college, I started learning a little bit more, opening my horizons, and I ended up joining a religious diversity group, which is also where Ari and I met back in college. And the thing that I loved about this religious diversity group is that everyone was welcome. Like everyone, like pagans, people who are Wiccan, people who are Christians, people of many different faiths, right? And we would spend many different nights throughout the year just, preparing talks and presentations and educating each other about these different religions and spiritual beliefs and practices, which I just thought it was super interesting because there are many things that I never knew about because I had a significant Christian background. Like that's how I was raised, right? So I remember very distinctly there was a night where we were talking about different pagan celebrations like throughout the year, and the one like Samhain came up, And I remember we all ended up sitting in the circle, and it was like dark. It was just like candlelight. We sat in the circle and we just shared, um, like, I guess you would say, like a prayer or some sort of like rumination on a loss that we had during the year or a wish that we had for the future. And it was something I had never experienced because when I've participated in other religious practices, and it was something where I was never really allowed to express anything, if that makes sense. And if I
Mhm.
was expected to express anything, it had to be like really artificial at one point in time. But this was like something very honest. Like it was
Mhm.
grieving but also celebrating. Like I remember, um at that point in time when I was in college, like I was still grieving the loss of my grandmother who had died a couple of years prior. And like that experience of being able to at least talk about that or to pass
Mhm.
on a little rumination about it, like really was cathartic in a way, right? Um, Ari, do you want to add anything to that about your experience?
Yeah, it was basically like I was still dealing with the death of my grandfather, and it really helped me kind of like let go, and just kind of like say goodbye in a sense that I had been holding on to certain things, and like it was just a nice way of like grieving and like saying goodbye and like saying hello to the darker season and like saying hello to like um uh to the winter time that was coming.
Yeah, I like that. Hmm. And I guess for me, I've always had a very sensitive history with religion. I have a lot of trauma associated with religious celebrations. And honestly, it's one of the main reasons why I have a difficult time celebrating things like Christmas, for example, because I just have so many negative associations. But celebrating Samhain with this religious diversity group, this very open group of people, was my first introduction into spiritual expression not being something militant or artificial or centered around judgment. And it was freeing for me, very much freeing, and I enjoyed it considerably.
Well, most of the rituals that the group did were really peaceful and very open and very. I just felt very refreshed after we did them. Like I felt very like invigorated after
Hmm.
we did them, like that we had accomplished something. And so, Samhain was no different. I'd often walked away from Samhain feeling like I had uh, done something meaningful.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like it just the sense of renewal
Hmm.
happened, right? So now looking back at the history of Samhain again, and we pulled from like multiple different sources because I mean the history of Samhain is pretty consistent, but depending on the institution or group of people who are examining Samhain, some people might have different takes. Um, so we do have history.com source, which Ari was just reading from a few minutes ago. It states that early texts present Samhain as a mandatory celebration lasting 3 days and 3 nights, where the community was required to show themselves to local kings or chieftains, and failure to participate was believed to result in punishment from the gods, usually in illness or death, right? So as you can see, like there were other aspects to Samhain that took place as well beyond just like the um, celebration of the final harvest in the um, introduction or anticipation of the darker season, right? So
So,
Let's see.
like
Go ahead.
Beltane, Samhain was a liminal or threshold festival when the boundary between this world and the other world thinned, meaning the Aussie or spirits or fairies, which often you see with Celtic or the Irish people, become more easily into this world. Uh, Scholars see the Aussie as remnants of the pagan gods. At Samhain, they were appeased with offerings of food and drink, which you always give to fairies, to ensure that their livestock survived the winter.
Interesting. I didn't know that. The souls of dead kin were also thought to revisit their homes seeking hospitality, and a place was set at the table for them during a Samhain meal, which we see similar practices in other cultures as well. It, like Leo just mentioned, it sounds like Day of the Dead, yes. Let's
And
see.
we can talk about later modern mythology, modern.
Right, right. Um, yeah, like it's interesting. We have this here that mumming and guising were part of the festival from at least the early modern era, where people went door to door in costume, reciting verses in exchange for food.
Yeah, and that was in Europe. But so that was one of the holidays, was the Celtic pagan rituals. Then you had Pomona, which is a Roman holiday, which had to do with apples and romance. That goes into the holiday as well. So bobbing for apples and kind of the where you see the divination of where you look in the mirror and you see your future husband or partner. That comes from Pomona as well. So stuff like that, because it's you get kind of a romantic sense from that, and then oh gosh, what's the other one too? Oh, um, All Saints Day or All Souls Day was created by the church in response to Samhain. And so I got from a book, Halloween, an American Holiday, Pope Gregory I declared, "Let the shrines of idols be no means destroyed. Let water be consecrated and sprinkled in the temples. Let altars be erected, so the people, not seeing their temples destroyed, may displace error and recognize the idol and adore the one true God, because they won't sacrifice to devils. Some celebration should be given in exchange for this. They celebrate a religious feast, just like they did when they were Celts, and worship God by their feasting. So they keep the outward pleasure, they more readily will receive spiritual joys." So basically, it was a response to the pagan holiday. They said basically like, let's keep the holiday, but let's make it about God.
Right. So, like, Catholicism in some fashion was attempting to adapt it and assimilate it,
Right.
right? To draw in people, right?
And
Interesting.
I think it's funny that they didn't destroy the temples and stuff. They were just like, let's make it religious, let's make it God in these temples. And that's where you see a lot of pagan imagery in these Catholic temples, these like older Catholic temples, where you'll see like pagan imagery. So it's interesting that they said, no, don't destroy it, assimilate it. Because basically, when they were Christians up and coming, the Romans destroyed a lot of their stuff, and they knew that it would only make it so that they worshipped harder in their own religion and they would have a lot of pushback. But assimilating them into their religion would make it so that they would be more likely to give up their religion and move towards that other religion.
Right. It would be so gradual that they wouldn't be able to realize that it was happening, right? Because it would seem like a very diplomatic gesture of sorts, right? Taylor mentions, I mean, that's what happened with Yule too, exactly. Like if you look at a lot of like early winter holidays, like if you look at like the Catholic or Christian variants, like they do pull a lot of like pagan aspects that aren't widely acknowledged, be truthfully, because that information is not conveyed, right? I didn't learn about that until I joined that religious diversity group, where I was able to learn about how these different like more mainstream and powerful religious institutions adapted these pagan holidays and symbols and practices, so on and so forth.
I mean, austere. I mean, Jesus didn't lay eggs, and I mean, where did the bunnies come from? Jesus didn't have bunnies during his resurrection.
Right. Leo says Catholicism is the definition of cultural appropriation. It's interesting you mentioned that, and truthfully, we could probably do an entire episode about the history of like religion being a tool for colonizing, especially, or
Or white
appropriate,
supremacy.
or white supremacy, misogyny, you know, a whole variety of different things, right? The oppression of LGBTQ plus peoples over the course of history. And it just, I think the gesture of taking on like pagan characteristics in Catholic churches or in Catholicism was a very subtle way of appropriating and assimilating, like we were just like colonizing in a way when you think about it.
And that's where Halloween really comes from too, is that it's like that split off from Samhain into Halloween, which is All Hallows Eve.
Yeah.
Which is Hallows is means holy, All Holy Eve. So it's more of that All Saints Day, All Souls Day. It's more of that kind of celebration. So it takes the pagan aspects of it, but it's more of the religious Catholic sense of the holiday.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they celebrate in sort of a pagan way by dressing up and asking for treats, which you would do as a way of appeasing the spirits,
Mm-hmm.
It's which is sort of removed from history.
Mm-hmm. It's reversed in a way, right? Like it's centered on self-appeasement as opposed to appeasing the spirits. I'm very also curious about when the commercialization of Halloween / All Hallows Eve started to take shape, right?
Oh, I can talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I would argue that that's also another way that the original celebration has been kind of shifted into something different.
We'll get to that. We're getting to that.
We'll get to that. I'm getting ahead of ourselves. What's next, Ari? What should we talk about next?
So basically, I was going to talk about how Samhain is the mark of the start of winter, and how scholars dispute it as the mark of the new year for Celtic peoples. So it's actually the start of the year for Celtic people instead of the end of the year. So it's described as a fire festival. It's considered an affirmation of life and vibrancy in the face of the coming dark and the harshness of winter. So one pagan described it as, new pagans look towards the physical darkness of winter and also reflect upon personal metaphorical darkness, sometimes confronting challenging emotional issues and things that should be left behind in the old year. And also, It's a gradual deepening of the longest night preceding the rebirth of the sun at solstice. Samhain used to be an agricultural festival, and in a few of those these days are farmers. It feels to me that fire festivals are a form of inner psychological beginnings or reflections of what will be outer manifestations at the solstice and equinoxes.
Interesting. So, what source did that come from? Was that the
Trick or treat Halloween in the globalizing world?
Globalizing world. The gradual deepening into the longest nights proceed. Yeah, so like it's very much centered on that death and rebirth dynamic, right? Interesting.
Taylor says the Jewish New Year starts in the fall too. It makes sense.
So yeah, like we can definitely see and derive parallels here. Definitely. I don't think we've talked about the Kearney source yet, have we? So when it comes to looking at Samhain, like this person references another source where they say that Samhain was a day of the dead, a time when it was believed that the souls of those who had died during the year were allowed to access the land of the living. It was a time when spirits were believed to be wandering, right? And I guess when we look back on that first experience that I had celebrating Samhain, like that was honored, like that was talked about, like we were able to talk about like the losses of the individuals who've been really significant to us, right? Despite common focus on death, a source who was written by the last name of Rogers critiques the imagination of Samhain as a festival dedicated to the dead or ancestor worship, highlighting other conceptualizations of Samhain, including the importance of the harvest and stock taking. Okay, so it's suggesting that at a certain point, there have been like divergences and kind of like, what's the word I'm thinking of? There have been points where it's been kind of like melded together with other
Converging.
Converging. Yep, that's the word I'm thinking of. Lagiacris is here. We're talking about Samhain and we're talking about Halloween and so on and so forth. Basically, we've been talking about the history of it. So additionally, contemporary practices in many parts of the world include the use of masks and symbols of the dead, including skeletons and ghosts. The enactment and portrayal of death is a predominant motif of Halloween, but in many instances, Halloween is the moment when worlds of the living and dead interact, right? So again, it comes back to that notion that there is this thinning of the veil between two different worlds, right? Where the individuals in the two different worlds are able to reconvene in some fashion or interact in some fashion. Oh, I like that. Taylor says, let's remember that spring and fall are growth periods for a lot of plants, and winter and summer are dormancy periods. Yes.
I like that.
100%. So we can kind of see though, like talking about this history, we can see how like contemporary celebrations of Halloween have taken shape over the years, right?
So basically what happened was, so you have all this stuff going on in Europe. You have the Celts, you have the Romans, you have all of these people all over Europe kind of celebrating all of these different holidays separately, right? So then what happens is you get the Puritans coming over to New England, and they don't really like celebrating at all because, first of all, they think that Halloween is a pagan holiday. They think it's the devil's holiday. This and even throughout history, you'll see that Christians kind of still fight back throughout history that it's the devil's holiday, and you'll hear it today. It's the devil's holiday.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a sense that they don't want to celebrate it. Up until probably the early 18th and 19th century, when there's a mass Irish and Scottish immigration to the United States. So all of a sudden you get a bunch of people from Ireland and Scotland that are coming into the United States, and they're bringing their Halloween traditions of mummery, which is going around asking for treats, or you'll trick them or mum them, and dressing up in costumes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's interesting that you were talking about the Puritans, because I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, and if memory serves me correctly, that is an offshoot of puritanical roots, let's just say. And I remember celebrating Halloween and Easter, at least Easter in like the commercialized sense, was considered big no-nos, mostly because it involved like celebrating the human like body, or like the human need for something, right? And there are a lot of Puritan beliefs that emphasize that like it's the human body that gets in the way of our connection between us and God, right? And that's why I think, looking at the commercialized aspects, it's still very much villainized in a lot of like Christian denominations, but it's also, like you were saying, very much villainized in the sense that it's considered like some sort of idol worship, or the worship of the dead, right? When it's really not. It's a celebration. It's
Celebration of life.
exactly. Yep.
Washington Irving, Puritan Halloween icon.
So
you also had, in the early 19th century, Cajun areas where nocturnal mass was said in cemeteries on Halloween night. Candles that had been blessed were placed on graves, and families spent the entire night by the graveside. Seems very Day of the Dead-ish as well.
yeah, agreed. Mm-hmm. And originally, go ahead.
Sorry. You go ahead.
I was going to say, originally they were confined, like these celebrations were confined to immigrant communities, and it was gradually assimilated into mainstream society and celebrated on a wider scale throughout the 20th century. So it just shows you that even in communities that are, usually distanced or even marginalized in many ways, sometimes these celebrations, these practices, these traditions can have the reverse effect and be assimilated on a wider scale, right? So let's see what else here.
But it's also because the Irish became part of mainstream society, so it became kind of the norm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Taylor, Victorians were all about the body and rise of spiritualism, rejecting religion, nihilism. Taylor, you're breaking me tonight, and I love it. Oh my goodness.
Victorians were all about seances.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They loved a good seance with some ectoplasm flowing down the head.
Yep.
Take pictures of it and like, see, a ghost came. I have ectoplasm on me. Are you sure that's not just cheesecloth? No, it's ectoplasm.
So interestingly, I mean, and we're kind of like moving more toward like a contemporary sense now. Through American influence, Halloween traditions have spread to other countries throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, including the mainland of Europe. So we see that there have been different like artifacts and symbols that have been connected with Halloween, taking on more significance over the course of the years, like jack-o'-lanterns, for example, who were carried by geysers on All Hallows Eve to frighten evil spirits. And there's a popular Christian folktale, Irish Christian folktale associated with the jack-o'-lantern, which in folklore is said to represent a soul who has been denied entry into both heaven and hell. So you can see that there is this instance where like Christianity took on that symbol and changed the narrative or adapted it in some fashion, right? So instead of being focused on warding away evil spirits or frightening evil spirits, it became some sort of like container or representation of a soul who has been denied entrance into either heaven and hell.
And it's funny because we use the American pumpkin as a symbol for the jack-o'-lantern, but originally it was a turnip that they would carve.
Yep.
Which is softer and so the pumpkin is softer and larger and easier to carve than the turnip. But isn't that weird? Like, yeah, let's just carve a turnip.
That sounds like a major pain. Like, no.
It probably looks horrifying.
Yeah, like, I mean, of course, we have like this notion of how ornate pumpkins look now, because let's admit it, we love pumpkins. We love how ornate they look.
I was at the grocery store the other day and like literally like I saw a family of 4 and they had like a whole basket full of giant pumpkins. And they were like, "We're carving tonight."
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I haven't carved pumpkins in so long. But my greatest weakness this season has been buying decorative fake pumpkins that are
Like the
made of
little tiny ones?
like the cloth ones that people like sew together.
Oh.
Like I have like a flannel pumpkin and it makes me really happy. Every little gay fiber in my being saw this flannel pumpkin and was like, I need this to be a centerpiece.
It just comes from the Native Americans. They taught us how to grow pumpkins.
True. So, are there any other aspects of the jack-o'-lantern that you want to talk about as an image? I'm trying to see if I missed anything. I think let's see.
The American tradition of carving pumpkins is recorded in 1837 as an originally associated with harvest time in general, not becoming specifically associated with Halloween until the mid to late 19th century.
Yep. Interesting. So truthfully, looking at all of this, pumpkin carving or acknowledging the pumpkin as a symbol is very new. It's pretty new, at least in the West here, right?
Yeah. Plus, modern imagery of Halloween comes from a lot of different sources, like Frankenstein, Dracula, The Mummy,
Mm-hmm.
a lot
Yeah.
of movies.
Pop culture definitely has influenced Halloween.
What's your
And
favorite horror movie?
oh my goodness. Okay. I was waiting for you to ask that. My favorite horror movie is the first Conjuring film.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And it's my favorite franchise as well.
I just saw the latest Conjuring movie, The Devil Made Me Do It.
I have not seen that one yet. Is it good?
I saw it on HBO Max. It's pretty good.
I need to watch that for sure. Deborah's like, get a real pumpkin this year, Donny. Oh, don't worry. My partner bought us real pumpkins that we just put outside and let the squirrels destroy. Oh my god. I literally almost peed my pants. Taylor, if I could frame that and etch it into a mountainside like a commandment, I would. That was beautiful. Lagiacra says that I am dressing up as Kai Overhaul from My Hero Academia. That's really cool. Well, I guess we might as well talk about Halloween now and what we're doing for it, right?
Yeah.
So
first of all, what's your favorite Halloween tradition?
okay, that's a good question. My favorite Halloween tradition is pumpkins. I really I like making pumpkin stuff, like food, like pumpkin seeds are one of my favorite snacks. I love how wholesome and earthy it is. Like it really feels like it's preparing me for a cold season, and that's why I love it so much.
My sister just carved her pumpkin. She made hers look like Jack Skellington, and they were my sister and her friend were roasting the seeds.
Oh, yes. It's so delicious. Oh, what? Okay, you didn't answer your favorite horror movie or franchise.
So my favorite horror movie, it's a toss-up because I really like the original Candyman a lot. Love Candyman. But I also really love Nightmare on Elm Street. The original Nightmare on Elm Street, so good.
I 1000% agree with you. I'm trying to convince my partner that watching the original Godzilla would be a great Halloween film because it was considered horror. But I've not convinced him yet, so I still have work to do. Yes, Leah, 100% agree. Pumpkin spice food. I love me a good pumpkin spice latte, not to be basic, but you know. Taylor says I was in an episode of Tiny Victories this week talking about Halloween. Yes. Yes. Did you mention your favorite Halloween tradition, Ari?
Oh, my favorite Halloween tradition is dressing up.
That is fun.
And reading tarot cards.
Divination. Divination's always been a central aspect to Samhain, All Hallows Eve, Halloween, all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It is interesting how pop culture has kind of turned Halloween into the season of thrills and suspense and terror, right?
Yeah. So, are you dressing up this year?
Yes, I am dressing up. So, okay. It's been a hard process, let me tell you, because my partner really wants to do couples costumes like forever now, and I'm okay with it. Like I think it's kind of fun
Well,
because
you
I've
did
never.
couples costumes. You did Velma and
We did.
Daphne last year.
We looked like we looked pretty damn good as Velma and Daphne from Scooby-Doo. Like I was very proud of that, and honestly, I don't think there's any topping that anytime soon. Originally, I wanted to go as Wanda and Vision. He would be Vision, I would be Wanda. but he didn't want to have to paint himself. So I was like, okay, like I get that, but I wanted to be Wanda. I wanted to be the Scarlet Witch so bad. And then we went through a phase where we were like, well, we'll just do separate costumes. I was going to be like a character from Star Trek for a while. Didn't end up doing that. And we finally settled last minute, mind you, on being characters from the Super Mario franchise. He's going to be Yoshi, the little dinosaur thing, and I am going to be a piranha plant.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't remember the piranha plant's name. Isn't it Petey or something? Petey the piranha plant. I can't.
Of course, you're going to be a plant.
I know. Like I was just like, if I'm going to be a damned Mario character, I'm going to be a plant. So now it's like, I'm going to be wearing like the piranha plant like head thing. It's going to look obnoxious. I have like slippers that match it, and I'm going to wear like I don't know, like a red or green shirt or pants, one of the two. And I'm gonna like go to like Marshalls or whatever and get like some vine garland and just drape myself in vines. I'm gonna look like the piranha plant and poison ivy from Batman had a love child.
It's gonna be perfect.
I'll put on lipstick to complete the ensemble. Lagiacris. Hail to Mothraism. Oh, that was Leo. Yes. Let's see. Taylor says, we were going to be the family from Little Mermaid 2, but I ran out of time, so Gwen will be Rosie the Riveter. Yes. And thank you, Deborah. I really appreciate that. You know, Leo, I think you may have just helped give me an idea for my costume. Maybe I will like just take a cheap old pot and break it and wear it. If it'll fit around me. We'll see. I don't know if I have a pot big enough. Taylor, are we talking Yoshi or slutty Yoshi?
Is there a slutty Yoshi?
I mean, Ari, we know the internet. The internet is full of
Rule
many things.
34.
There are many, many slutty variants of things on the internet. Looking at the outfit, because it's in the office, it does not, it's very conservative, let's just say. Yeah, I think it's pretty unslutty. Although I'm sure if we had the opportunity, we would try our best to make things as slut-tastic as possible.
So, all-time favorite costume you've ever wore?
Well, Velma, hands down.
It was the Velma costume?
Okay, I loved that costume, but damn, was wearing a push-up bra all night uncomfortable. I will never underestimate the difficulties that people go through who have to wear bras on a regular basis. Because by the time that night came and I took it off, it was it was this out-of-body experience. How about you, Ari? What's your favorite costume you've ever done?
Favorite costume I've ever done? It wasn't my costume that I did. It was my sister's costume that she did, but it was still my favorite. She dressed up as Garfield, and my mom hand-sewn the costume. It was so awesome. It was such an awesome costume that I remember it to this day. But it came down over the head, and it was Garfield.
That is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. All right, Lagiacris, you have a good night. Ari, are you going to be going with a bandit for Halloween, or are you dressing
No,
up?
I'm not dressing up for Halloween.
Not dressing up this year?
No, I've got to I think I'm gonna go see a movie and with my friend, and then I need to do my giveaway tarot deck.
That would be a great
tarot
night.
time with Ari.
Yeah, that would be a great night to do tarot time, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm giving away my tarot deck that night.
Woo! Taylor says that She was Eowyn from the Lord of the Rings franchise in 2003. Oh my God, iconic.
That's a
Amazing.
good costume.
That is a good costume. Taylor says, we all know there's a lot of racist costumes that were common when we were kids, unfortunately, though. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like my Esmeralda costume.
Oh,
Ooh.
God. I remember when I was in college seeing so many people dressed up as Native Americans. Like, I remember, like,
Because we were the Chippewas.
yeah. I literally remember there were like frat parties that people would go to where they like played like cowboys and Indians. And I was just like, like, what?
I would not go to any of those parties.
Yeah, yeah, no. And of course, they were very just
They
so
were
such
too. Frat parties were too slimy for me. I just would drink at home.
yeah, like I could drink at home and not be socially exhausted and be fine. Yeah. One of these years I do want to I really want to like dress up as Mothra some year. Like a super androgynous Mothra.
Get
Because
your
like
partner to dress up as Godzilla.
I don't know if he'd ever do that. We'll see. Maybe I can beg him to do that. Um I'm just like the images are going through my mind of that. uh, oh wow. Yeah. Yeah. And agreed, Leo. Like the word frat is already enough of a warning. Um, so what's your favorite Halloween candy and your least favorite?
Ooh, that's a good one. We used to go to. So when I was a kid, we used to go to the rich person's my aunt's neighborhood because it was the rich neighborhood. You know, they give you the full size candy bars, not that mini crap.
I don't blame you. I don't deal with that mini crap either.
Was like full size candy bars. Here we go. Get home, there's just a pile of candy like this, like a mound.
Yeah. Oh my God,
Oh
I'm
man.
laughing at Taylor's comments. You as Godzilla and Brit as a building you knocked down. Oh my God. Oh. I love it.
But no, my favorite candy was probably either a Mars bar or a Snickers bar.
Ooh, good
And Twizzlers.
suggestions.
Those single Twizzlers that they came, yeah.
For me, I really love, okay, it's four things because I'm a pig. Candy bar wise, my top favorite is probably a Payday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically a grandparent because of that. Um, I love Paydays because like the peanut butter and the peanuts, so yummy.
No, paydays are good.
It's like the perfect balance between sweet and salty, and I love that.
Yeah.
I also love
Do you know
Snickers.
how you can get a payday without having a payday?
How?
So you mix roasted peanuts, like regular just peanuts,
Mm-hmm.
and candy corn, and it tastes like a payday.
Really?
Yes, my mom does it all the time.
I'll have to try that. That sounds amazing. Um, I do love Snickers. And I do have a very unhealthy obsession with Reese's. I love Reese's peanut butter cups.
Do you get the Halloween pumpkins?
I do. I like is every season I will get the Reese's pumpkins, Reese's holiday trees, Reese's eggs for Easter. Oh my goodness. I love them.
Oh my God, Taylor, no, not the peanut butter taffy that's black and orange. That's my least favorite candy. It's so gross to me.
Ah, ah.
No.
Leo actually loved the mallow pumpkins as well. Oh no, they developed oh, that's not good. An allergy. So, Taylor, speaking of like the older types of candies, one of my favorites, I don't love Tootsie Rolls, but I love like the flavored variants of Tootsie Rolls.
I love those
Like
too.
they are so good.
So I was on a hike to Isle Royal with my sister, and we brought a little bag of candy each to bring with us to kind of like break up the fact that we were eating like camp food, which I don't know if you've had camp food. It's like you stir a bag, it's kind of gruelish.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like you put hot water in a bag, you stir it around. It's yeah, whatever. So what we brought were the flavored Tootsie Rolls as a way to break up the monotony. And I remember how good those were.
Yeah, those are really, really good. And Leo, yes and yes. I've had both of those. Oh, another one that I am weird about. I love those pinwheel mints. Spearmint ones, peppermint ones. I love them so much. That's very old fashioned too. Yep. So, all right. What sort of things do you want to reflect on as we head into the winter season, Ari?
So I regret that I didn't spend enough time in the sunshine, but I can't do anything about it now as it's getting darker. So I thank the sunshine for what I had when I had it, but I welcome the dark as it comes. And I just hope that next time I just have more time to be in the sun and that I just spend my time more wisely.
I love that. Yeah. My thoughts going into the dark season is I also regret not spending more time outside because last year in 2020 I felt like I spent a lot of time outside like gardening, stuff like that. And I did do that this year, but for some reason I just feel like I didn't do it as much. So I'm hoping it's my hope that next year I will do more, but I am also very appreciative of what I've been able to do, you know. Um, I've also been thinking a lot about um, like reflecting on making more time for myself outside of being glued to technology all the time. Ironically, considering I'm being glued to technology right now, having this conversation, and I love technology dearly, but I think I'm gonna try to like just make more time to do like, and maybe instead of like doing journaling online, maybe journal in a book. Maybe just shut things off at a certain time at night and just enjoy the presence of people or relaxation, reading, maybe, so on and so forth.
I
So
don't believe you personally because you're a cyber gay.
I know I am a cyber gay. Like, I'm a cyber gay, but I'm also a tree hugger gay. Like, it's such a strange combination. I'm an android who wants to just enjoy hugging a tree once in a while. Arby loves your makeup, Ari.
Thank you.
And Taylor says, I'm reflecting on what I actually want in terms of passion and career and what I want to focus on. I'm lost in a forest and can't see the trees. Oh. Well, I hope that you find the trees. I really do. Interesting that Donny, you're a Wally gay. I'll take that. I'll take that. Yeah. So, not to spoil my book or anything, but like my feats of alchemy will definitely reveal how obsessive I am about like kind of viewing myself in a very cyborgish way, because I feel like a lot of LGBTQ plus people have to kind of craft themselves, you know? So if you're ever interested in that, like go check that out for sure. I'm a combo of Mothra and Godzilla, if only. So, okay, my other wish going into the holiday seasons, well, going into the darker seasons, I'm going to love my cat and cuddle him as much as I can. My witchy tuxedo cat. What about you, Ari?
That was one of the questions. You can't see this, but I wrote a note that says, did you know that Gaby is a witch's cat?
Yes, my tuxedo cat. His name is Gaby, like Gayby, and it stands for gay baby. But when it's a situation where it needs to be socially acceptable, I call him Gabriel. But his name really is not Gabriel. What about Larity?
Uh, he's my baby. He's sleeping. He's on the bed right now.
Oh, I want to boop him.
He's a few feet from me. He might bite you.
That's totally okay. I'm so used to it. Well, my friends, I think we've come to the end of our show tonight. We had a wonderful time talking to you about Samhain, Halloween traditions, what we love and what we don't love, so on and so forth. And we will be here again next week, of course. So we will see you again Thursday of next week. Ari, do you have any parting words for us before we leave?
Have a fun and safe Halloween, everyone.
Woo! And if you do costumes, share some pictures with us because we want to see them. Okay. We love you.
Love you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.